And good morning, this is Mike Lodge. I am the business advisor. Well, okay, I'm looking outside because I always give you a morning report on what it's doing outside. So I'm looking outside. It's perfectly green, it's cloudy, and it's raining. Now we're supposed to have rain all this week, which is good, which means I don't have to go out and water the garden. I don't have to worry about the lawn. I don't have to worry about the flowers. Mother Nature is helping me out this week, which means I can get more done. It's surprising how when you have these things that you have to do in the yard, how much time it takes. Because when you go out there, you know that you're going to work on one thing, but then you see something else, and you see something else, and then you add this on, and by the time you're done, by the time you're done, you spend all your time outside. So I'm glad Mother Nature, thank you Mother Nature for coming to my aid because I really needed some time in the office. I've had some questions lately from people saying, gosh, I really want to start a business because they want a second gig, right? They want a second source of income, which I agree. Everybody should have a second source of income. Everybody should be diversified because you can't rely on any one source of income any longer. You've got to have several. That's why I do business advisory work, I do accounting work, and I do business mediation work. So I've got 3 there that I can depend upon. Now, do I like doing all 3 of them? No, but I do it because it's called paying the bills. And we all are in that situation right now where inflation has gone up. By the way, I was so pissed off at Biden this morning. I'm always pissed off when I get up and I look at the Twitter feeds on business and seeing exactly what the economy is doing this morning. So I look at it every morning, and Biden put out a whole bunch of tweets. And all the tweets were blaming other people for the inflationary times that we're in. It's always somebody else's fault. Let me tell you, in good leadership, you find out what the problem is, you focus on the problem, and you try to resolve the problem. You don't blame other people, because that's wasting time. In fact, it makes you look even worse when you start blaming other people. Well, it's Johnny's fault, or it's Mr. Magoo's fault, or it's Timbuktu's fault. If you are going to blame somebody else and not get the jobs done, if you know that there's inflation, then you've got to focus on inflation. What is causing that inflation? Well, you know that fuel costs are driving inflation. Well, you can't point to the Republicans or the independents or whoever you want to point fingers at and say, well, it's their fault. They're not doing anything about it. Unfortunately, you see, when the president has his finger on the pulse of oil leases and gas leases and pipelines and everything else, and he puts a stop to everything else, then that creates inflation. When you overspend, that creates inflation. So, let me get back to my main point. So people have asked me, should I start a business now? Well, listen, if you have a job and that's bringing in money, and if you want a second source of income, that might turn into a full-time later on, but if you want a second source of income, you do it conservatively. So you set up your business conservatively. And today we're going to talk about what are the first steps that you need to do, okay? And no one ever does this. Know what a financial statement looks like, okay? If you don't know what a financial statement is all about, because that is the document, the information, the data that shows what your business is all about. So you've got to know your revenue. You've got to know your cost of goods or expenses. You've got to know your net income, because that net income is going to be what you're taxed on. And you need to know your cash flow. Those are the items that you need to know. If you don't know how to record revenue, if you don't know how to go out and generate revenue, you're not going to have any revenue. If you don't know how to control your expenses, and maybe your expenses are over what your revenues are, then you've got to do 2 things. One, either cut your revenue, increase your revenue, or cut your expenses. A lot of people say, my gosh, I need to cut my expenses. Yeah, sometimes you do need to cut them, but you also need to know how to increase your revenue. Then you know what your net income is. Revenue minus expenses equals net income. That net income is what you're going to be taxed on. So you need to talk to your accountant and say, how many years can I carry a loss before the IRS is going to come after me? Or before your state is going to come after you? Ask your accountant to sit down and talk with you about that. Taxes are a very important thing. Once you let taxes get out of control, it is going to control you. Because if you know that there's a liability to the Internal Revenue Service or to your state or for your payroll or whatever it is, that weighs heavily upon you. And you can't make other decisions when you have that kind of a debt to a federal agency or a state agency. It really weighs heavy on. Listen, I've been there. I have had it at some point in time where the revenue used to be when you got paid upon receipt, and then it went to 30, and then it went to 60, then it went to 90 before you got paid, but you still had to meet payroll. I tell you, those things weigh down upon you. But we're getting too far. Right now, you're talking about a small company. Okay, you're talking about a small business that you're going to operate in the back bedroom of your house or in your garage or someplace on the kitchen table or the dining room table. Upgrade yourself to the dining room table. But know what your revenues are, know what your expenses are, know what your net income is, and know how that cash flow is flowing through so that you know when monies are flowing through and when your cash is going to be eaten up by expenses so that you can time things. You need to know these things. So the first thing I want you to do if you're thinking about starting a business, take a business 101 class or something so that you know the accounting, the maybe accounting for dummies, one of those types of classes that will get you to that point where you understand what a financial statement is about and how to read them and how to understand them. Because there are certain times that you're going to have to sit down and look at that financial statement and say, okay, what can I tweak. Not tweet. You're not going to tweet it, but you're going to tweak it. You're going to make some changes to make your financial statement stronger. Now, if you need help with that, listen, I'll be more than happy to sit down with you. I'll be more than happy to guide you along and give you some coaching on starting this business. In fact, you can send me an email at info@lodge-co.com or go to my website, which is if you want more access to me, at www.lodge-co.com. And you can set up an appointment with me, and we can go over whatever issue that you are having. It might be an HR issue. It might be a startup issue. It might be whatever it is. Just throw it at me. I've been in business for so long, and I've run so many different types of businesses that I've been through it all. And I advise businesses all the time on a daily basis and mediate their situations, their disputes that they may have. But you can still start a business, even though we are in these inflationary times, but do something that you're good at. Okay, do something, not what everybody else is doing, but do something that you know that you are good at. You have the experience level in it, that you can drive this small business into a bigger business. Listen, I love starting businesses, and I love sitting down and talking to people and grinding through the issues and also coming up with some new ideas of how to get them off their butts and getting out there and starting a business. Now, when I started my business, it was at home. And it was a long time ago. It was a long time ago. We didn't even have really computers at that time. Okay? Well, and when I prepared tax returns way back then, I did it by hand. Can you imagine taking a tax return and preparing it by hand? Everything now is computerized. But I still know where to look at on a tax return because I know the flow. Now, when the tax returns change, I have to find out where that flow is going. I can't not just depend upon the computer. Although sometimes I have depended upon the computer and I've missed things. And I hate that. So you need to know the flow. But you choose something that you're good at, and you choose something that you can start out of your house. You can build up small. Once I started from my house, then I went to an outside office where they called an executive suite, and you just rented a little itty bitty office, but you had a conference room available to you. You had copying services available to you. You had an answering service that answered all of your phones that made you look professional. And then from there, I went to a big, almost 2,700 square foot office. I had 14 employees. We were busy. We were going full speed. Now I am back down to a one-man office, and I love it. I truly, truly love it. I still have some of the same clients that I've had in the past. I slowed it down just a little bit, but I love working with my clients. And I like being here at home. The only thing I don't like is the dogs. The dogs seem to think that they should follow me around every single place that I go. I can't even walk out of my office where they are following right behind me. They're so afraid they're going to miss something. Ah, my gosh. But listen, you can still start a business even in these inflationary times, but understand, start small, know your financial statements, know how to look at your income and your banking and everything else, and you will be okay. Once you know that you've got financial controls and you understand it, you can move forward. You know what your costs are going to be, you know what your budgets are going to be, you know what everything else. And the other thing I suggest, keep a journal. Every thought that comes into your mind, journal it. Put it in a notepad. Because you can go back to that and say, I remember thinking about that. I wonder if it can apply now. And you can even put in there, okay, I spent this much, I spent that much, I brought in this much money today, I met my goals for the day. Put your goals and objective of what your business is going to be all about. So you can still start a business in these inflationary times. You just need to be conservative on how you're doing it. Don't just think that you're going to put out a product and it's going to happen and money's going to roll in. Doesn't work. Never happens. You have to put work into it. And you got to understand how you're running your business. Excuse me. I don't know why I'm all of a sudden needing to cough. Well, I do know it's all this stuff is blooming here. Every single flower is in bloom. So if you have any questions, just let me know. Send me an email at info@lodge-co.com. Go to my website, www.lodge-co.com, and we'll do some consulting or coaching with you on starting a business. Listen, if you like my podcast, help me out. Go to www.buymeacoffee.com/Michael Lodge. Again, that's www.buymeacoffee.com/Michael Lodge, and help me out. I greatly appreciate it. So, if you're thinking about starting a business, if it's in the back of your mind, do the first steps first. And then everything will flow. Everything will begin to go. Once you've learned your financials, then I want you to study on marketing of whatever product or service you're going to provide. But first, understand and know financial statements. Understand what flows into that, because you're going to have to make adjustments at some point in time to improve your business. And the way you do that is by looking at your financial statements. Understanding the flow of money coming in and flow of money going out. If more money is flowing out than coming in, then you have an issue. And we all have that issue at the moment with this inflation. Listen, this is Mike Lodge. I am the business advisor. Stay tuned for tomorrow. We're going to talk more about business. This is Mike Lodge once again. Talk with you soon. Bye-bye.